my name again is Holly Bielak. I'm an instructional technology specialist. Our suite is right upstairs in Engineering 101. I'm going to be the moderator for the session. So let me introduce our panelists. So first we have Caroline Forster. After completing her PhD in political science at Emory University in Atlanta in 2004, she came to the political science department at UMBC, where she has taught courses such as research methods, comparative politics analysis, and European politics. Her work in comparative politics has been published in numerous journals, including the International Political Science Review, Party Politics, and the Journal of Legislative Studies. At present, she is under contract for a textbook in research methods in political science, and an article on how to include civic engagement in the classroom is forthcoming in the Journal of Political Science Education. Very nice. And then on the line here we have Katie Morris. Katie Morris is the program director for UMBC's social work program at Shady Grove. She primarily teaches information technology and social work methods 1. She went through the ADP training in the spring of 2006 and converted information technology and social work. Each semester she applies the lessons learned to improve this course in the online and hybrid format. So thank you ladies for joining us. We were going to have another panelist. Hopefully she can get here. I know there's some weather around the region. Sarah Lupin, and maybe she will be able to join us momentarily. So the first thing I want to do is I have a few questions. So we'll start with Caroline first, and then we'll move to Katie to answer this question. What made you decide to participate in the course redesign process, or taking a face-to-face course and turning it into online or hybrid format? So,
okay. Caroline? Well, hi. I think I went through the ADP process in its earliest manifestation when it was first that's how we met, right? So like we're talking 10 years ago. And I went through that. I'm a complete dinosaur when it comes to technology. And so I think that when I arrived at UMBC, I didn't know anything about Blackboard. I didn't know anything about online resources. So I took the course as a means to learn and to develop new ideas for my course, and learning about all the different ways that you can really be innovative with courses. So that's what brought me to it. I came, I was new, and I just wanted to learn, honestly. So I did the alternate delivery ADP. Yeah. I did that, and then at the same time, through Linda Hodges, I took a course on Blackboard, because one thing I'll say is that the online component to your courses will be greatly amplified if you can learn how to use Blackboard effectively. So taking those two courses together. So I came to it because I really just wanted to learn. And later I realized how many problems doing this type of technology could solve in terms of not being in the classroom and asynchronous work and things like that. So.
Katie, same question. You want me to repeat it, or do you remember?
No, I got it. So similar to Carolyn too, I think she was just ahead of me there. But I think we went through this process early on, and I think UMBC was just developing the process too. I think where the ADP training is now is really fantastic. So I too, wanted to be doing something different in the classroom. I think students were bringing more technology to the classroom, and I wasn't really matching that. So I think that's what kind of spurred me to think about how else can I get the content to them. There's way too much content. I think the other thing I struggled with is there's way too much content for me to cover. How else can I cover that besides just sitting in the classroom, lecturing to them?
All right, Katie, I'm going to start with you for this question. What was the most rewarding thing about changing your course into this delivery format? Or your courses?
I think the feedback that I've gotten from the students and how I feel in the classroom. There's days when you walk out of the class and you're like, okay, that was not. Hopefully that won't ever happen again. You walk out and just know it wasn't. It just kind of thudded along, I guess. But I think since I've redesigned the class and offering it both hybrid and online format, I think I finally got to a point where I've got it down and students are really telling me how much they're getting out of the classroom. I spend a lot more time in the class actually applying what I either gave them via lecture or via readings, which I'm expecting them to do online. And so when we're in class, we're doing a lot more hands-on activities where we're processing or addressing or talking about what I expected them to learn, rather than trying to fit that all into class time. It just didn't allow for enough discussion, and I feel like they're really getting it more because they're able to talk and think it through with me and with their peers.
Caroline, same questions.
The most rewarding aspect of it? I think that the online format allows certain types of students who might otherwise be really quiet in the classroom to really come alive with the online format. And for me, that has been very nice because I'll teach students in the traditional format and I never hear from them. And then all of a sudden they have this completely different presence online. So I would have to say that I've gotten to know students in different ways because of their interactions online, and it's interesting how that dynamic plays out. I also like the fact, and I like the fact that I created a course. I have a completely online course, and at some point, if you want, I can talk about the structure of that course, because like basically you have a buffet of choices, like when you're working with these resources, and you can choose to incorporate some elements into your own course. But when I developed this course several years ago, I managed to develop a format that I've been able to use quite literally over and over again. So I have, about 15 students every summer program, every winter program. And it's been when I say what's the most rewarding thing, I like the fact that I'm teaching a course that I created and that it has its own life to it. And I just have to kind of play with it to make sure it's still current and relevant and all that stuff. But it's, rewarding in that respect. It's been very nice to be able to offer a summer and winter course. Once you, the front work is a lot, but then once you get it started, it's quite nice. So.
Question?
So I've taught hybrid before, and how do you get students to maintain professionalism online? I mean, I have some that treat the discussion boards like an extension of Facebook, and have said in online comments, well, I wish there was a like button for this. How do you maintain that, classroom kind of?
Okay, that's really good. I wish I could pull up some of my posts actually. Okay, so the way that I teach European politics fully online, okay? And so what I do the day before I begin the course, so this session, it started on January 5th. So on the night of January 4th, I sent a long letter and through email to all of the students. And so I introduced them to the course, and I sent the syllabus. Now on the syllabus, and we deal with political concepts. So, I mean, they can be very controversial, and people can be disrespectful, and it can get it could potentially get ugly. In the syllabus, I'm very clear about the tone I expect people to have, and I don't and I read the post, and I don't put up with it at all. So one thing you can do before the course begins is to say your discussion boards are like you in the classroom. The discussion boards are to take place of our discussions. We expect you to be formal, we expect you to be professional, we expect you to be you can disagree, but you have to disagree in a way that is professional, meaning that you say your opinion and you say why you disagree, but you do so while respecting the UMBC code, right? And so I think that having that expectation in the beginning. Another thing that I do is I have what I call the introduction discussion board. And on that discussion board, it's on the very first day, and I said, before you do anything else, go to the introduction discussion board. And basically, I'm like, hey, I'm Carolyn Forestier, and this is who I am, and I tell them about what I'm teaching. And I'm a little informal, but formal at the same time, and I introduce myself. It's like as if I were here on the first day of class. And then I say to them, now it's your turn. This isn't, I would like you to introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what political science courses have you taken, what sorts of things are you hoping to learn, and I ask them to create a post that's independent of the formal information, but it's more about themselves. And then everybody can see those posts, and what I do is I respond personally to every single post. And so I think that sets up a tone for how these discussion boards could go. If I were to see that somebody was using a discussion post in a way that was either disrespectful or a little too loose, I would send them a personal email. And I would, not on the discussion board where everyone could see it, but I would send them, I saw your post. I'm hoping that we can have a different type of conversation in the discussion boards. But I think that early intervention would be key. And then if you can have students posting nice chunky paragraphs that are just chock full of good information, students want to emulate that. So I honestly haven't had the problem yet. So, but I feel like that first discussion board and then the subsequent, the fact that I respond personally, I engage them with their discussion. Oh, you mentioned you went to this country. I was there once too, and did you happen to go to this particular place? And then, that everybody can see that discussion, but I try to take the place of the classroom. And my students know that I just don't put up with any of that stuff. So I think that's setting that tone early. So
Katie, you want to respond about etiquette in the online classroom?
Yeah, I agree with what Caroline noted too. I have a course civility kind of in my statement, and that is one thing I address in there, and I call it that, the civility piece. So that's definitely one thing. The other is I actually grade my discussion board postings, and so there have been times when students, I haven't found them inappropriate, but some of them have kind of gone off tangent. And so that's the time when I'm grading them that I give them direct feedback, and that's something that only the student sees. And so I would give them feedback in terms of, I definitely would give them feedback about the etiquette piece in terms of professionalism. That's part of our code of ethics too, so I often tie it to that also. Is that you, Nancy?
Yes.
That's the question. I can only see half your head, but so I can share that with you, Nancy.
Okay, great, thanks.
Next question, and we'll start with Katie this time. What key, and you guys have already mentioned a lot of these already in your discussion, what key concepts, maybe 3 or so, have you learned throughout this process in transforming a face-to-face class into one that's online or hybrid? What are the top 3 to 5 things that you've learned?
Well, I think one of the things is that because of the way I set the hybrid course up, which is different from online, I kind of set them up differently, but the hybrid one, the expectation is that they're doing the work online, the lectures and the readings, and they're coming prepared to class so that we can do real work in class, whether it's applying a theory to a case study or whatever it is. So I really hold them accountable for that work. They have to do the readings in the lecture. Otherwise, when they come to class, we can't have a discussion or they can't participate in the group work. And so kind of in holding them accountable, it's up to you to decide what that is. Whether that's, I know some faculty do a test or a quiz when they first come in. Sometimes that's hard to do for me, kind of in my content area. It might work better maybe in a math or economics class where you're testing kind of those concepts, make sure that they got them. But one thing that I've done is that I I pass out 3 or 4 questions that everybody has to answer individually. And oftentimes, the first time I do this, we'll come off an online class and we'll go into a hybrid class and we come in face-to-face and I give them questions that are about the readings or about what we're going to discuss today. And you can see 2 or 3 of them not writing anything. So they didn't do it, or they didn't do the work they were supposed to do. And they're like, are we handing this in? And I say, yep. And so that usually gets oh, okay. And then that kind of sets the stage that they know they need to come in prepared. And then I break them into groups, and then we discuss whatever the concept is or the case study or whatever the work is as it applies to the readings. And I usually email those students after the fact or after I've reviewed their kind of individual comments, and I'll say, based on your individual comments that you made in the, wrote on your report in the class that you didn't do the readings or you didn't do them well enough or you didn't listen to the lecture. In order to be successful in the class, I'm going to need you to do that. And then you'll find the next class, obviously more of them are better prepared because they know that expectation is set up that way. So I think that's what I found is really letting them know what the expectation is, what they need to do, being really organized and knowing so that they know what they need to do in order to be best prepared for whether it's online or hybrid class. So.
I would say that what I've learned is that I can be really flexible in the classroom. I have my online course, and it's its own contained thing, but I have used these online resources in other ways too. Like, for example, if we have a snow day starting in February, we're not going to cancel class. I'm going to just throw a lecture up online. I know how to do that now, and so I can tell students, you don't have to cancel class just because something happens. Like, for example, I teach at 8:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning, and usually it's the same course. And when we have 2-hour delays, it causes a problem because it's like my 8:30 has been canceled, but my 10 o'clock meets. But I don't want to meet with the 10 o'clock. Either I don't want to meet with the 10 o'clock or I've got to find a way to get the 8:30 to meet. And so these online resources have helped me. And if I know at like 6 o'clock in the morning that that we have a 2-hour delay, I can just hide myself someplace with just my computer, and I've got my notes ready to go, and I can just teach my class using this thing called, it used to be Camtasia, now it's Relay, but I can use that. I can put a lecture up online, and then I can create a discussion board in Blackboard, and I can email my students and say, we don't have to cancel class. They're like, really?
There's no university policy that sort of conflicts with our ability to hold class even though school is out.
Well, I wonder, I mean, the thing is, even if, I don't know the policy, I don't know if there is a policy, but what I tell my students, it's asynchronous, meaning that they can do it on their time. So like, I can create it as homework.
That's true.
I can say, well, class is canceled, but
You're still responsible
we
for
still
this
have
material.
exactly, and we don't lose any content because of losing this time.
That's true.
So but I like it because of the fact that my syllabus is ironclad. I do not want to lose a single day. So this is one way that I can figure out how to maintain the integrity. Likewise, I'll also share, if you guys don't mind, I'll also share that I learned these resources really early on in 2004, and then, I had a pregnancy, and it was just sort of like, okay, now what? And the baby came a little bit early. I was teaching in the middle of a semester. I used these resources so that my students didn't miss any class time, because we were in the classroom up to a certain point, and then for about a month we were online, and then I came back and finished out the semester. And it worked beautifully. It was almost like seamless. Another thing that you can do once you learn how to use the technology is that, like, for example, I teach research methods. Okay, so this is now a different course, but some of the research methods involve statistical manipulations, either with Excel or SPSS or some program or something like that. And I have students who are highly math phobic, like they're just nervous about the math. So I present something. If you have something in your classes that you're worried that your students want repeated exposure to, you could create something online so that if the student gets it the first time, great. But if they need a little bit more work with it, they could watch the same lecture 2 or 3 times. So I put my tutorials on how to use these statistical programs online, even during regular classes, so that I present the material in the regular classroom, but then I say, listen, if this wasn't all clear, before you come to my office for office hours, I've got it online. Watch it, and then if you still have questions, bring those questions in. So it's been very flexible. You ask what I've learned. I've learned that this can be very flexible. So my online course, I have, it's a contained unit, but then at the same time, I've been able to use these things in my other classes for these, different types of situations that arise. So that's what I'd say.
And Sarah has joined us.
I thought it was tomorrow. I apologize.
It's okay. Well, so next question, Sarah. You want to introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll continue on with the discussion.
I'm Sarah Lupin, and I'm apologetic, and I teach in biology. And I think the course that's relevant for this that I teach is nutrition, which is a 200-level course in biology taken mainly by pre-nursing students, although anybody can take it, as long as they have the prerequisite, which is just one biology course. And 3 years ago, I hybridized that course, so the class now meets once a week on Friday morning, which the students love. No, they do love that it only meets once a week, but Friday morning is not their preferred time. And I think it's been very successful. The students learn a little more, although they actually like me a little less than they did before. Then I guess the more of me you get, the more you like me. But they have higher scores on the equivalent tests and so on. So yeah, I'll stop there for now.
Well, thank you for joining us. And, so next question, I'm going to start with Caroline this time. Did you notice any changes in the student level of participation and performance in face-to-face as compared with online and hybrid format? So,
Sure.
you know, we're teaching these courses face-to-face, and now you move them to online and hybrid format. Did you notice any performance changes in terms of grades, or were they participating more in one than in the other, or even attendance? People worry about attendance issues, like if you meet face-to-face and you take attendance regularly, you know, you're going to see the students, but hybrid and online, you can't necessarily do that.
Okay, I think that it might be helpful to talk about the structure of my course, because with that in mind, I would say, I'll say off the bat that the grades with the online courses generally tend to be higher because it's harder to hide. If you don't do the work, you make a 0. It's just, that's the way it works. And so like in the regular classroom, maybe students can, you know, it's like I find that the students do the work almost all the time when it's online because it's just so immediate and it's so right there. So like my course, what I have is I have it separated into 8 separate course days, as I call them. And for each course day, there are 5 lectures. And so a lecture can be as few as 20 minutes, but it can be as long as 45 minutes. Then after each lecture, there is a short 5-question quiz only designed to say, were you halfway awake during this lecture, right? And it's surprising what people get wrong on these quizzes because they were probably like, you know, doing a Sudoku or something like that when they were listening to the lecture. But anyway, so they have the lecture, they have the quiz. Then after the quiz, they participate in a discussion board. I ask a question relevant for, you know, like to take the place of class discussion. Okay, so imagine that for every course day, there are 5 of these lectures. For every lecture, there's a quiz, and then there's a discussion board. Now, after the end of the 5 lectures, they have to do a current events report. I'm dealing with European politics. So like, let's say that we talked about the United Kingdom. Right now it was very timely because we did France literally the day after, like, everything happened. So they wrote a current events report on France, and then something I learned from the Blackboard discussions, after that, they have to write a journal. A journal is like a 1-page, 2-page kind of summary reflection on everything that they've learned. So they have all of this work that they're responsible for, and they have to like click and show, and they see in Blackboard there's that grade report, and the line goes across. And so if they haven't done something, there's a big 0 right there, or a dot, or something that tells them I haven't done that. So I find that participation goes up because they're like, I have to do my journal. Like, whereas in the regular class, you know, if I say I'm going to collect the journal on this day, some students won't turn it in, and now it's technically late, and then they don't turn it in ever. But online, eventually they're going to turn it in. Now, it might get a penalty because it got turned in late, but I find that participation increases because they can actually see, they're online all the time, and they see that they haven't turned in work. So, and I make it very, very clear about what is due, and I have due dates because I grade the stuff. So, I think participation increases. I think that they learn. I'd have to think hard about comparing the test in the regular semester format to the online format. I give similar essay kind of related tests, and I would say that what I will say is they maybe read the book a little bit less online. You know, like, unless I make them directly accountable for the material that's in the text, maybe the text gets read less. I don't know. That's something that might be a challenge. But anyway.
Sarah, you want to go ahead and answer the same question?
I think I've in the same theme as you. I think they participate more, and essentially it's because they have more things that they have to do. So if you teach a fully in-person class, whatever they're not doing when they're not in class is essentially optional. Hopefully they're reading the book, but you can't make them. Hopefully they're preparing for class, taking notes. Preparing for tests and things like that. So now they have, it's a weekly setup. Friday, it's a front-loaded class, so when they get to class, that's the end of the, have you guys talked about how you could do it either way?
We just got, yeah.
Okay. So, in general, if you think about hybridizing a class that, for example, meets once a week, you can either have that weekly meeting be the beginning, right, the introduction of a new set of material, unit, chapter, whatever, topic, or it could be the culmination of the student's exploration of that. And I think it depends on your topic, which one is better for you. And so for mine, it's the Friday morning, it's the culmination of their work on that topic. And it works well for me because nutrition, a lot of the basic information is very easy for students to obtain on their own. It's not complex information. So they obtain that on their own. Outside of class, I tell them, you know, I give them my learning objectives of what they have to know. I think most of them read the book. It's inherently something that's pretty interesting to most of them, so I think it makes it easier to read the book. But also when they get to class on Friday morning, there's a quiz. And I used to have that quiz outside of class, which is, I think, what you do, at least.
It's online.
It's an online quiz,
yeah.
Right. And I actually have it, well, for mine, I think it works well to have it in class, because what happens sometimes with a hybrid class is students don't think they need to come to class. So I get incredible attendance by having a quiz every Friday, and it's Friday morning, and you know, so if students were out late Thursday night or whatever, they still have that incentive to come to class Friday morning. So during the week they read the book, and then they post to the discussion board, so just like yours, and they have to do that, and it has to contain certain elements, and usually every post I ask that it has they have to include factual elements that they cite, which could be from the text or any other reliable source. And then they also have to include their own opinion and support that. And then they have to reply, so that's Tuesday, by Tuesday at midnight, and then by Thursday at midnight they have to reply to 3 of their colleagues, and that also has criteria that are judged. And then Friday morning they take the quiz and come to class. So it's really, you know, if you just do all those things, even if you're sort of trying to do them in a half-assed kind of way, you still end up learning things, you know? So I think the structure, very similar to what you said, really gets them prepared for that. Now, all those discussion boards is a ton of grading. So just one possible way you can deal with all that grading is that the TAs and I would randomly choose people every week from within a group. We'd grade 1 or 2 people. So we'd grade about 20% of the class, 25% every week. So that reduced the grading load. But you never knew if you were going to get graded that week, so you had to do it.
Can I piggyback off of this for a second?
Yeah.
I find that the discussion board, grading it, is probably for me one of the most challenging things to do, because I have my students post and then I have them respond to somebody else's post, you know, and things like that. But my question is, sometimes my students will be going off on a particular tangent and I don't know, should I put in a post? Should I not put in a post? Like if I put in a post and all of a sudden the atmosphere changes. But if I don't put in a post, they might go too far off track. So I struggle with it. I have to say that I really do struggle with this. But so, you know, that could be, I could do that better.
Do you have anything to add about student performance in terms of face-to-face versus online or hybrid?
No, I think just to reiterate what Sarah kind of said, I think, you know, if you set up the structure as such, again, which I kind of mentioned earlier, where you hold them accountable that they have to do X, Y, and Z, I think, you know, that it does lead to better prepared kind of discussions in class. And not that I don't get that in the face-to-face. I think, you know, you get them to be held accountable. But, you know, I think when you're really organizing and they know what they need to do, I think then it can lead to really successful class discussions because they know what to expect that week. And they come really well prepared because they listened to the lecture or they did whatever they needed to do before they got there.
Holly?
Yep.
Can I ask the panelists
a
question? So this is Linda Katie, I don't know if you can see me. All of you though, Katie's use of the phrase holding students accountable, and then Sarah made that comment that, you know, and all of you have said, you know, your students tend to be more prepared, more engaged, you know. They're doing the work. And then Sarah made that comment, you know, they like her a little less. And that raised the question for me, do you find that your evaluations, how do your evaluations shift? Because to me, what I see, just as you all are saying, the great advantage of this is it's very obvious what they need to be doing, and they're held accountable, and they're doing it, which are all great things. But in some students' minds, that translates into you're not doing your job. And I just wondered if you're seeing that or how you deal with that, you know, how you...
Yeah, I did a comparison before and after of my just CQs, and you can do this yourself, if, you know, all the CQs are public, but before and after hybridizing. And after I hybridized, the part that was at item 1 where it says how much they learned, one of them says how much did you learn in this course or something like that. And that one went up and it stayed slightly higher. It was already, you know, it was like 4.2 and it went to 4.5 or whatever it is. So that one went up, and then most of the others were the same. And then the one where it said the overall overall this is a good instructor or whatever that one is, went slightly down. And I think it's, you know, because when they, you know, I don't want to diss student evaluations because it's a whole complex topic as it is, but, you know, it is true that I think I have more time to sort of entertain my students, you know, and it's not hybrid. And so for me, the only one that matters is how much they learned, both their impression of it, but mostly also whether it's actually true, which hopefully from my assessments, and again, as I mentioned earlier, those have improved as well. The quality of the data analysis assignments as well as the tests, both improved. So, and also I didn't mean to imply that you couldn't hold students accountable in a non-hybrid class. You can.
Yeah. I think it's made me hold both of my class. Like I realized too, like, well, I expected this of my hybrid class. I'm gonna expect it of my face-to-face class. Like you didn't do the reading, so now it's gonna impact our discussion in our lecture. So I think it's made me feel like I need to hold them more accountable.
Even in a face-to-face class.
Even in a face-to-face, yeah.
And I don't have data. I don't have, because this is a summer course and a winter course, so I really don't have the comparable SCEQs. So you can't answer the question.
Well, this is just a final wrap-up question, and then we'll open the floor to if anybody else has any questions. Any friendly advice you can give to those who are participating in the ADP program or plan to participate in the ADP program about taking their face-to-face? I know there's a lot of, oh my gosh, I'm not going to see them every day. I'm only going to see them once a week. I'm not going to see them at all and online. Any friendly advice you can offer your fellow faculty members about this transition?
So, you know, it's always useful to be organized, but in a hybrid course, you really have to be organized. So the students really know what they're supposed to be doing when they're not with you, which there's more of then. So I think that's important. Another thing that helps keep everyone on the same page that I've started to do is once a week, sometimes more, but usually just once, I'll record a little 5-minute video, usually intermediate between when I see them, so around Sunday or Monday, I'll record it and just say like, hey guys, remember to do this, and even though spring break's coming up, you've got that, and it looks like on the boards people are really confused about iron, you know, there's these 2 kinds of iron, blah, blah, blah. So so sometimes I'll just, you know, usually those are like, you know, just a few, like jings, like 5 minutes. And I think it helps students feel connected to see that, and I just posted an announcement with the link. I just put them on YouTube, but obviously there's a variety of things you can do with the videos. So there's that. But the other thing I would say is like, it really frees, if you can get them to get that content outside of class, then once you get to class, you know, and it doesn't, I guess your course doesn't have to be hybrid for this to happen, but it's one way to do it. Absolutely what we're talking about. When you get to class, then you can do really cool, real life, real world, interesting things in class and not boring content acquisition stuff.
Katie?
I think, you know, one recommendation that I have is I imagine many of you are teaching probably this spring semester and might not be kind of doing the hybridization until summer or next fall. But I really recommend trying something this semester with your current class. You know, so maybe you're looking at doing adaptive release, or maybe you're looking at doing a discussion board posting and you didn't used to do that in your class. Like, one thing that I found helpful along the way is that I started piloting things in my regular face-to-face classes. And as Carolyn noted, one time it was because we got a snowstorm and my class schedule was impacted. So if you could try something new, you know, it helps you kind of get that confidence, like, oh, hey, this isn't so bad, or hey, I get this, or oh, wow, I definitely wouldn't understand, you know, definitely didn't get this, this took a lot longer to do, or so you kind of have a good sense of that. So I definitely recommend trying something. And even though obviously I teach one class online, one class hybrid, and another course, a completely different course, face-to-face, there's things I still implement in that face-to-face class that I kind of learned from the online and hybrid classwork, I guess. And I really have to reiterate what Sarah said, because you can't say it enough. You really have to be organized. I mean, I can't believe it. And because I think one of the biggest challenges is how quickly they can move through the class. And before you know it, I think when you're used to teaching face-to-face, you could literally, if I have class at noon on Friday, I could do prep on Friday at 11 a.m. You cannot do that in this setting. Like, you've got to get that stuff up in advance. And then it kind of builds on itself. So I definitely encourage you to think about being organized and posting things in advance and really making it crystal clear to students what they should be doing when they're not with you. I think that's one issue that I hear from students in my class is they'll be like, oh, I took this other online class and I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing, when we weren't in class, or I had no idea what was due or when it was due or where it was due. So I definitely would recommend that, being just really clear with them.
I have a few things. One, I would say that in the beginning of your hybrid or online course, if you have an assignment that's due, something that's written, provide extensive feedback. Show the students that this is a serious, it's online, but it's just like any other course. And so for the first couple of assignments, I provide extensive feedback. And Blackboard's nice because like when they turn in something online, you put in the grade and then there's a menu, feedback to user, and you can really be clear and engage with the student and show them that they're just not a number in your, they're still a presence and that they're a real student to you. So I think that providing that feedback. Furthermore, if students do really well with certain assignments, you can also send them an email, to kind of give them that reinforcement to say, your posts have been really great, keep that up. And, kind of still having that instructor persona. And it's just not about the course and the content, it's also about being an instructor and being more holistic about it. So I do that as well. I have a couple pieces of advice about making lectures, if anybody wants to do that. One, be very careful with how you use temporal references. Like, don't say, and what happened last week? Because then, if you're using it in the winter, if you want to use the exact same lecture for the summer, it's already extremely obsolete. And so I have to go back and listen to my lectures, and I'm like, oh gosh, and that happened at minute 24, and I can't edit it, so now I got to redo the whole thing. And so it's like, if once I become more generic in my presentation of certain types, I mean, you can, the French Revolution happened in 1789, that's fine, but for things, like for example, if I'm going to talk about, the attacks in France, I'm not going to say last week. I'm going to be very specific about when it happened so that if I want to reuse a lecture, it's still okay, right? Likewise, before you start recording, I can't tell you how many times I've done like the shadow, like, because like I'll start recording something and 7 or 8 minutes in, I realize I've said something that I really didn't want to say, or the phone rings, or, make sure you take the phone off the hook. And then, sometimes I actually just leave in the phone ringing. And I'm just like, look, I've been really good up until this point. We're leaving it in, And so, in making those recordings, I have 40 of them, like roughly about 40 of them online. And some of them are like 45 minutes long. It's like, you get to 30 minutes, you don't want to do it again. So, just be flexible about it. But what I do is I make a PowerPoint presentation and I print that out for myself. So like as I'm talking and I'm just being myself, I'm kind of like looking down, like what am I talking about next? Like when you're in a classroom and you're pressing that button and you see like, what are we talking? Oh yeah, okay, this is what we're talking about. That type, you want that to be less, you want it to be less choppy in a video, so it's like know what's coming up. So, but give yourself like a couple, I can't tell you, almost for every single video I make, it's only on the third try that I really get going, but if I'm already in 7-8 minutes, I'm like, all right, whatever happened, we're just gonna deal with it. But if I'm only in 2 or 3 minutes, I'll stop and discard it and start over. So, yeah.
So I had a couple of comments. You said to provide extensive feedback for, I guess, the first couple of Blackboard discussions or whatever. So do you let your students know generally that you're going to provide extensive feedback for the first couple and then the rest may be less? Do you let them know that up front? Okay.
No.
Okay, because my concern is appearing to be inconsistent. I'm probably not, I love teaching, but it's probably not the best profession for somebody that's anal. Because I think, oh my goodness, what if they think that I'm just, laxing on the job or something like that, but that works for you.
It does, because like for the first couple of and also too for the first assignments, I hate to say this, but like sometimes I'll give lower grades. Just, if somebody's written an excellent essay, they'll get the A, absolutely. And I'll write, this is an excellent post, keep this up. I really like what you did here, here, and here. And so then they have that feedback so they know they can carry it. But if an essay is just kind of okay, it might be a B, it might be a C. For the first one, I'll probably give it a C and then give them the feedback. You could make this so much stronger by doing this, this, and this. And then in the next one, I see that they've changed it and now they're A work.
Okay, so it's motivation to improve, and hopefully you won't have to give such extensive comments as time passes.
I think so. And I'm trying, it's like you have to walk a fine line because you don't want them to drop the course, because like in those first couple of assignments, you're still in that drop ad phase.
Or maybe let them repost or resubmit.
Exactly.
And then my other comment was with regard to Relay. This is really where I just illustrate the analness, because I've tried Relay, and Katie sort of introduced me to it 10 times because you can't edit. So it's like it's got to be perfect, or you have to do the whole thing over again.
I think my suggestion, and I heard what Carolyn was saying too, you're not going to be perfect. Like you gotta let go of the perfect. And we're not perfect in the classroom too.
Yeah.
I
I know, but what Carolyn was saying is that's okay, because that's sort of live and dynamic and interactive, but
I think you can, for me, when I was first doing it, we were able to edit the videos. I spent so much time editing these videos because we used a different program at the time. And I couldn't believe how much time I spent editing these videos to cut out my uhs and ums. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need to stop saying them. But at the same time, I think, when you're more than halfway into the lecture, you gotta just keep pushing through, just like, oops, I didn't mean to say that, or that didn't come out right. Like, I literally, students have told me they've laughed at some of my lectures because I kind of have an oops in the middle, and I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like what I meant to say. I mean, if it's really not appropriate, then I don't post it. But I think it can't be completely perfect, because it could take 20 tries to get it that way.
In a 45-minute lecture, it's not going to happen, And you can pause. Like, let's say that you're
in 45 minutes. I teach once a week.
Wow.
But
I don't.
You probably break it up though.
I don't
yeah.
create relays that are that long, but yeah.
All right, let's take one or two more questions,
sorry,
and then we're
Sarah.
going to wrap up, and we're going to let you finish lunch, and then we're going to start the afternoon session. Yes, sir.
So my question has to do with workload. I think the traditional face-to-face, we have the count, right? We have to have 29 meetings, and we can use some of it for assessment and so on, like for a particular class. Based on what I hear from you, because even with the three different classes that you described, the amount of work needed for a class is so variable compared to the traditional way of doing this. It's so different from person to person, the ideas that you have, and so on. So, have you developed some kind of guidelines as to, especially in the context of a hybrid, for a 3-credit course, what is some guidelines? I think that if I'm changing you can always say, okay, I need to cover the syllabus. I don't know whether that is loose enough or that is the best we can do. I was wondering whether you had thought about this.
I'm going to get one of you to answer this one, then we're going to wrap up. Who wants to go? Go ahead, Sarah.
I haven't been told any specific guideline about it. The students do about the same amount of. They do more work out, online, so they do the same amount of total work. I think we cover the material more deeply than we did before, to some extent. In terms of my workload, I say it's about the same as teaching it face-to-face, because I spend all this time grading discussion boards, even though we only grade a quarter of them. That's still, 20-some posts and 75 replies every week that we...
Are you saying workload for us or workload for the students?
For you.
Oh, for me. Oh, well, the workload in the beginning is huge.
So that's right. So that's what I was going to say, that once you have it set up...
I expected you to say, but
it's unreal. Be prepared. It's
Yeah.
especially if you're a perfectionist and you're going to be discarding.
It depends
20-minute
too, though,
videos,
what
you know?
you're doing. Right. It depends what you're having your students do outside of class, whether you're recording lectures outside of class. But it's definitely going to be way more work the first time you do it. But then after that, I think it's the same or slightly less, maybe. Work.
Much less. Yeah.
I wouldn't say mine's much less.
Like every year or so, I watch my whole course. And then if there's a particular lecture out of the 40 that's like, this is way too out of date, I redo it. And that'll take a couple hours because now I got to prepare it, write a new PowerPoint, do it, post it, like that process takes several hours. But if a lecture, like for example, if I'm talking, and that's the reason why I said when you're devising your lectures, be very careful about the content. Keep it temporally neutral. Thank you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like you don't want to use references to last week or something like that, or the Euro crisis that's going on right now. Like, no, it's like that's going to change, and so then a 40-minute lecture has to be completely redone because of like a 2-minute segment that I can't change. And I don't want to send a post that says, I was lame and didn't redo it, I just redo it. So, but it's certainly much less than it was. And it's beautiful now. I've used the same course at least 4 or 5 times. And I feel like the workload is much less than it was for a traditional, certainly in class course. And, but it was worth it to put all that time in the beginning. And it was a lot of hours, especially since I didn't understand the technology.
Do you record the lecture like sitting at your desk, or are you at the board? Or
no, I'm sitting at the desk, sitting forward so I can move my hands.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So like that way I feel like I'm myself and I'm kind of interacting with them, but they don't see me. It's not like they have like a little picture at the bottom of me talking or anything. It's just my PowerPoints and my voice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like...
No. It's my
Turn
PowerPoint.
the camera on or off.
No, heck no.
If you want them to see you want to do some signing and things. Well, we're gonna wrap it up.
Can I?
Oh,
yeah.
And I think Sarah was gonna say this. Sarah, you and I gonna talk about shorter lectures?
So I guess number one, you can break it up, but also, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do mine in Snagit. So they can see whatever I've got on my screen, which is either my slides or Blackboard. I'll go back and forth. And they can also see me because I have my camera turned on. I think it's a little more engaging when they can see me too, although I don't know if there's any data about that one way or the other. Somebody might know. And also, I think in Snagit you can actually edit. I don't because I'm so not a perfectionist, but and also mine are all really short. But I think you can, I know you can edit from the beginning and end. You can cut off the beginning and end, but I think you can go in the middle. It's $50 for your whole life.
It strikes me that there is an advantage, both from the student point of view and the faculty point of view, to see if you can take your lectures and do them as little 15, 20-minute chunks.
Yeah.
Like 3 15-minute chunks.
And then you can have a quiz after and stuff like that, and make it adaptive released to get into the next video and stuff like that if you want.
There's some anecdotal evidence that students will watch shorter videos more often. They'll watch a 15-minute video 3 times rather than watch one 45-minute video. Plus, then it allows you more, if you flub up, if you're 15 minutes in and you flubbed up, your lecture was over anyway, so.
Those of you participating in the hybrid workshop will talk more about the chunking and the benefits of how you can integrate content and activities with chunking.
Yeah, your colleague Tom sort of said that was a requirement to do the chunking instead of lecturing.
We'll hear more from Tom later. Do you want to wrap up and thank our
Sarah, Katie, I have a gift for you. It looks like this. So when you come on campus, I can mail it to you.
I can take it for you.
But I just wanted to thank the panelists. They gave great advice.
I don't deserve this, man. You gotta come on time to get your
And
present.
before everybody departs,
Yeah,
I want to just wrap up here for a second. The ADP program has been going on since 2005, and over 60 faculty have participated. And one of the things our office is interested in is seeing the impact of faculty participating and designing their courses on student outcomes. So Tom is giving a presentation tomorrow at noon during the lunch hour on what we found so far in that research. So if you're interested in hearing what he's got to say about the results thus far, you're welcome to come back tomorrow at noon, even if you're not participating in the Alternate Delivery Program workshop. Just let me know on your way out if you're thinking about coming so we can make sure we have food for you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.